Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltiziak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we discuss week one of the Detroit Lions training camp. We're going to talk about Dan Campbell's message to the team as things got started, and we'll update the players and roster health, plus talk about the buzz coming out of the first few days of practice. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
This is Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Coach Jerry Angers, former Michigan High School Coach of the Year, as well as Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He is the Training and Scouting Director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, good to have you here on this beautiful Michigan sunny summer day.
75 and sunny, boys. We're talking Lions football.
There you go. First game of the season, preseason, of course, later this month. Joining Coach and I is Sports Writer of the Year for Community Newspaper Holdings Incorporated. That is the senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle, James Cook. James, good to have you here, too.
Good to be here, and good to have football going, sort of. Training camp, at least.
Exactly, and they're not even in pads yet, but apparently that doesn't matter, and we'll get to that as well. As we get started, folks, just remind you, tell your friends about the show. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube for the video version. Like and subscribe if you would. Social media-wise, you can find us mostly on Twitter and Instagram. Okay, guys, camp opened up this weekend. Always enthusiastic, Dan Campbell says he is for a new season. That's like the best way I can talk like Yoda. Basically, he says every year that you do this, you realize you just need to get in. And he's talking about the playoffs. But he goes, the first way is to win the division. And because that gets you in automatically. And then it's just the matchup after that. Dan said he's still as enthusiastic as ever. There's a price to pay, though, to get back in the dance. And that will never change. So they also asked him about upside to starting early. Coach Campbell said, he didn't really know if there was. They kind of had the same number of practices, even though things are shifted slightly different. So he doesn't really know if they're getting much of a jump on things. Obviously, that extra preseason game will be more reps. But, Coach, you've opened many seasons, some as an assistant coach, some as a head coach. Talk to us about the opening message Dan Campbell gave to his team, to start things off.
Well, I think that the big thing is where do we want to go? What is our goals? What are we after? And how do we get there? Those are something you start out with every year. You don't, you're going to say, we want to get back in the playoffs. We just got to get there. We got to win the division. They got a goal board, guys. Years ago in 2016, we went to state finals. We had steps. I would uncover a step each week of a goal that week. And that's what Dan's talking about. It's last year's last. It's gone. We got new guys back. We got to set our goals and how do we get there? And it's step by step, baby steps. So I love it. That's what they're doing. And they have some hungry guys. We talked about this on the last show. They have hungry guys that didn't play. We have a running back that's upset because everybody's kind of forgot about him. Those are things that are going to be reached and help out. And on with the extra week. Yeah, I agree. It's the same amount of practices they're not doing anymore. The thing I like about it is we lost Levi. And I think I like about it with us starting this earlier. Now we have a week. We're a week ahead of deciding what we may have to do in the free agent market or things like that down the road. Those are all written down. And if these other guys fit in, the new guys, the rookies, the people taking places, the Lopez's and stuff like that, then we don't have to make changes. But I still looking forward to it. But again, it's all about goals and your number one goal is in the Super Bowl because you got a whole lot of other things to cover before you get there.
That's right. That's looking too far ahead, because then if you look too far ahead, you miss what's right in front of you. James, the opening message, enthusiasm, not a shock. It seems like if you're not enthusiastic at this point, then you need to get out of the business, because that's kind of, maybe requirement number one for the job, but also not a shock that Campbell realizes how much it's going to take to get back. We heard that last year when he said when he was a player, he saw a 12-4 team from one season just totally fall apart the next year because things got a little lackadaisical. So I presume this opening message just rings true to what Campbell seems to be.
Yeah, complacency can totally be an enemy, and I think Dan Campbell's gonna root that out for sure. Having that extra week, like Coach said, is going to be helpful for them because they got to evaluate these guys at some of these positions where they now have injuries that they didn't quite expect up until recently. So they got to evaluate Tyleik Williams really quick, and then is he going to be somebody that they can start from day one? Is Lopez somebody that's going to could go right into that spot? And if not, do they have to go out and find somebody else? And Levi was going to play probably some defensive end too. I mean, he did last year. So does this make it more likely they go out and get Zadarius Smith? I don't know how much more likely it could be that they end up with him in camp, but it points that way.
Fair enough. Well, guys, those injuries have grabbed the headlines. So let's start there. Let's start with the first one. Coach mentioned it. Levi Onwuzurike, he is out for the year. That is the first shockwave, if you will. He had surgery, significant injury, had to be done. It was got more clarity as camp went on, found out it was about a month after he signed the contract. His knee was not getting any better. So it wasn't just aches and pains. And that's when they figured out what they had to do. Campbell said they hate it for Levi. It's not his fault. James, he signed a $4 million deal, $3.5 million guaranteed on that. That still counts against the cap, right? So that affects the Lions' ability to go get somebody else?
The guaranteed portion does, yes. So any bonuses or anything like that, he's obviously, since he's not going to play, he's not going to be able to earn those. So that wouldn't count against the cap. So that base salary of 3.8 or 3.5 that was guaranteed will count against the cap. So they sort of save $500,000 under the cap.
Okay, and go ahead.
I think maybe the good thing about this, if you're looking longer term, is that this makes it more likely that he stays.
Oh, and comes back to the Lions next year.
Yeah, I think so, because he's going to be coming off an ACL. The market for him is not going to be high because of that. I think it's much more likely, and with the Lions sticking behind him so much, that he stays and signs maybe a 1 or 2 year deal after this to stick around even longer.
Yeah, I mean, there's that thought, right? He got a contract from them, and he's getting paid this year. And you're better off, Coach, I presume, going into a known situation when you're coming off an injury or rehabbing through it than going into a brand new situation. And so, yeah, and especially we know the Lions salary cap next year is not good. So they're going to need some guys on affordable contracts. But before we get to that, Coach, what does it mean for this year? Because we were thrilled when the Lions re-signed him on that 1 year deal. I'm like, oh, man. Awesome extra depth, got him at an affordable price. What does just the Levi injury mean?
Well, I think I had somebody question me the other day, why are we not going out and getting, or they sent me, how come we're not going out and getting Smith? We lost Levi, blah, blah, blah. It hurts because he can play 4 down, he can play 4 down lineman, he can play 5 down lineman, he can play end, he can play inside. He's more of an inside guy. He's how many snaps did he have last year? The thing is Campbell and them have said that they feel that there's enough bodies in the locker room to offset what we're losing. And again, it's not going to be one guy going to replace Levi, but it's going to be multiple of guys to replace Levi. So yeah, it hurts, but again, better now than right at the end of the preseason, or better now than right in the middle of the season. And I guess is it better? No, but it's a better sign that we're able to get that done and figure out who's going to fill that need. So going to be sorely missed. There's no doubt in my mind. And again, we were excited and I was ready to see him just break out and tear it up. But it sounds like there's some other guys doing a great job in camp so far.
Yeah, and that's it, right? The silver linings. Obviously, huge hit, James. Big loss because he was going to be a guy, especially with Aleem out, going to get a lot of snaps early on, we were thinking. But also, as you and Coach have talked about, this early start on camp and all this, they have time to prepare for this stuff and figure out what is going to be the replacement. Obviously, you're not going to have a one-to-one replacement with Levi in most likely all situations. But you've got time to prepare. You've got time to make adjustments. You've got time to try things and see what works and doesn't before everything starts. So, any other thoughts you've got, James, on Levi not being there in the middle?
Well, it gives them some time too when final cutdowns come to pick somebody else up. That's why it's better to happen now than during the season. You're going to have that wave of players getting released in a month or so after all the exhibition games and everything. So you're going to have some options there if you want. If you know, or they could just completely change things around. You know, I mean, the obvious replacement for Levi would be Josh Pascal, but he's also injured. So now you're looking at who are we going to start kind of at that three technique tackle, or are we just going to say, hey, you know what? We have a bunch of huge defensive tackles. Let's just play Reeder and Tyleik Williams and Lopez and Martin and just clog the middle against the run and let the ends get the pressure. Uh, you
Yeah.
could do any number of things.
Yeah, so and we're gonna get into, I guess, what it looks like overall. We actually got some insights from Dan Campbell on that defensive line as well. But that's not the only injury, right? Multiple guys have been out since training camp opened. Some have been injured and left. One of the first injuries that happened was Enos Rakestraw left first camp. All reports where it looked really bad, but fortunately nothing major happened. He's got a contusion. He's sore. He's going to be out a few days, which is also good to remember that when something does happen, you kind of got to wait for the evaluation to come out and know what the prognosis actually is. Malcolm Rodriguez, he is out and expected out, but they actually saw him working on the sidelines, and that gave some people optimism. Dan, originally I think it said November. Now he's saying October for Malcolm. Khalil Dorsey is out. Campbell said the speed is there, but he's got to be able to work on putting his foot in the ground and moving and making that transition, hoping he'll be back in late camp. Coach Mekhi Wingo, same situation. Probably September, they said, for Wingo. So that might even be after camp ends then. Miles Frazier, a guy who we thought might make some early moves, he is out, and they're calling it September-ish, maybe September, October for Miles Frazier. I got to keep going. I'm sorry, there's more guys. Decker is out, but this is another good one where it's like, all right, he has this little procedure to clean something up. They're expecting him back right after the Hall of Fame game. Pascal, you guys mentioned that, probably around Labor Day. He had surgery to clean something up as well. The other day at practice, Sione Vaki and Lopez both out for a little bit. Vaki has got a hamstring issue and whatnot, but they said that sets back his ability right now because Campbell really wants to get him involved more with this offense. He thinks him very versatile. And Lopez got stepped on by a cleat coach, and that cleat twisted on his foot. So they're out for a little bit, but it doesn't sound like anything too long. Coach, I'll start with you. I threw a lot of names out at a lot of different positions. Is there any one or two things that jump out to you that just kind of your overall initial reactions to that?
Yeah, just as a fan, we are so gun shy as soon as we hear injuries. Like I told you guys the other day, I'm tired of social media already because these are little bumps and bruises and things like that happen. They're not even hitting yet. Nothing where you hear, oh, he went down, non-contact, stuff like that. Hopefully these guys come back. And Campbell mentioned it, and I kind of mentioned earlier too. It's nice because you're looking at this layer of guys coming back in certain situations somewhere down the road. And again, we have an extra preseason game to find out what these rookies and free agents can do. We have, the ability to let these other guys see how they can back up Decker, especially with big menu and stuff like that. So I'm not overly concerned with it. Again, when the pads come on and they start going, but when guys aren't leaving the field because they got injured, that's a pretty good sign.
All right, James, what do you want to add on to this? Because again, a lot of different guys, a lot of different positions seem to be impacted here.
Yeah, it is a lot. Luckily, I mean, at least some of them are the veteran guys who you kind of, they know what they're doing already. They know the defense. Decker, like, I'm not worried about Decker at all. Like he can step right in. He wasn't going to play in the preseason pretty much at all anyway. So those kind of things aren't really worried. I'm not worried about Pascal. He's been here long enough to know everything. The younger guys may be a little bit of concern. I mean, with Rakestraw, Vaki, some of those guys may be missing some reps that I think being young guys would be important for them. Glad that Rakestraw is not not serious. NFL terms, contusion means bruise. For those who aren't familiar, although usually just more than what we think of as a bruise, usually a deeper bruise, and everything. But yeah, when I first heard about him leaving practice and everything like that, like you said, the reports didn't look good originally.
Right.
A chest injury and that it didn't look good. So to just hear that it was just a chest bruise is pretty good. And he's only supposed to miss it a couple of days or something. So that's great that they're gonna get him back because they need to work him into that corner rotation, which can be a real strength of this defense too if those guys stay in there.
Yeah, I think the youngsters. I mean, I look at Miles Frazier and I'm like, man, I want that guy getting reps right now. Because those are going to be important later in the season. Same for Mekhi Wingo. But yeah, Rakestraw is going to be counted on potentially heavily. And so if these guys can come back, and Lopez, even though he's not a rookie, he's new to the system. Fortunately, he's out for a short amount of time. But I want to see what Sione Vaki can do because that's a guy who, Campbell talked about it. Multiple positions he could use him in. And if they're going to use, I mean, if you're looking for your weapons, right? I mean, you saw him in preseason last year. He reminded you of a Theo Riddick with maybe even something else. And so would love to see Sione Vaki and his skill set get on the field more as well. And then it just could potentially create more matchup problems if you've got all these other guys on there as well. And someone that can just sub in and spell for somebody. So one injury I forgot to mention, which was listed, was Alex Anzalone was not practicing due to hamstring, but he is there. And we're going to get to Anzalone here in just a little bit. As far as practices go, though, they're not in pads. They're not even in pads, right? And now there's been a couple bumps and bruises on the field. Some of those other injuries had already happened. They're not field related. Coach Campbell did say he's not changing much in training camp. He's doing a lot of things the way he's done it before, but they're going to be smart as always. And he said, you can't let the fear of injury, coach, affect your identity. You've preached this stuff before. You've been through this countless times. You've had teams with a variety of different players get injured. Sometimes it's players you're heavily counting on. But does something like this, how does it impact you as you prepare, especially this far ahead of time? I mean, we're far away from the season yet.
Well, it's the competitiveness is what's going to create it. And, my thing was if we're in a thud drill where we're just, thudding somebody up, not taking the ground, then you thud them up and not take them ground 100%. Effort. You don't go baby step through there. You can't do it. The injuries come mostly from people holding back and not from people going after it. They all know how to tackle. They all know how to block. They know how to get their head out of the way. They know how to use their shoulder pads. They know how to use their hands. And so, the competition part of that is turn it up. But you also have the time where the guy's trying to make the squad, and maybe the competitiveness has to be back down a little bit when people aren't wearing pads. Don't get noticed the wrong way by taking somebody down and getting them hurt in that situation. So I think that's the biggest thing with it is, you're 100%. If you got 10 reps, you got 12 reps, you go as hard as you can for those 10 or 12, and then move on to walk and play and practice another day.
All right. Well, let's talk defensive line because Coach Campbell talked about that. That's where, we know Aleem McNeil is out, right? But we know Levi Onwuzurike is out. Pascal is out. We've got a variety of things. Campbell says they know they have some guys coming back, though. He talked about Pascal and McNeil coming back. So you can look at it as they're not there now, but you're going to get them later. So there's the other side of looking at it is you're building a roster right now, knowing you're going to get some reinforcements later in the season. So, James, that could be a big thing. Plus, in the meantime, he says they're going to find a way. And I love this, and this is almost what the Lions had to do with the secondary a couple years ago. He says if they can't find a way to do it, they will fabricate it. And so I feel like that's what they did with all those blitzes on the secondary. But Campbell also said it means it's Pat O'Connor and Tyleik Williams time. So what are you seeing from the defensive line right here?
Well, the good thing is that they stockpiled depth. in the off season, so
Yes.
they can withstand some of these things. Last year, because they had to use him, they have some confidence in Pat O'Connor. They have some of those other guys that they picked up in the middle of the season last year that they're familiar with, and they have some confidence in playing, like Al-Quadin Muhammad, Miles Adams, if they need to throw him in there. Some guys like that. They know they're going to get Mingo back. They're going to get uh, you know McNeil back at some point, maybe about midway through the season, and Pascal back fairly soon in early into the season. So those are some good bodies to add there. Counting on those guys to come back. I mean, last year we kind of got burned on that. We were every week it was like, oh, we're going to get this guy back. We're going to get this guy back, and then kept getting pushed back and pushed back, and we never got Carlton Davis back. We never got Hutchinson back. We never got any of these guys back. So I think that they're probably just kind of counting on those guys are bonuses when they come back. We got to figure out something for right now. We got to figure out what we're doing week 1, week 2, 3 maybe, and go from there. And if these guys come back, it's great. Then we have a whole lot of extra depth. But I mean, O'Connor's going to play a role. Lopez is going to be huge. Hopefully, Broderick Martin can maybe make a step up. Maybe some guy that they sign as an undrafted free agent it proves that they can be in the roster, or maybe that huge rugby player they got from Australia. It's just like some kind of savant and monster, and can come in and do something. But they're gonna have to figure something out.
Yeah, Campbell did say DJ Reader being there gives them a lot of comfort as well because he can play the nose and the 3 technique, and they said a lot of the dirty work he does goes unseen. But Coach, I think James hit something right on the head there. You can say it's good that these guys are expected to come back, but as a coach, I got to believe you're looking at the guys in the room right now, and you're planning for the battles and the games with those guys, knowing that the other could happen, but you can't count on that, right?
Oh, there's for sure. You have to go with what is on the practice field. You have to go what is going to be eligible for the game situation. You can set up things. You can set up and say, okay, oh man, McNeil's going to be back halfway through the season. Oh my God, it's great. But so I think one of the biggest things is go to that depth piece and go to what, even James said earlier, maybe we go big, we put Williams and we put DJ Reader in at the same time and funnel everything outside. That's the thing about this coaching staff. They're going to take the bodies that they have available, and they're going to devise a scheme to maximize their full potential. You're not going to say, oh, let's set up a 3D, let's set up a 3 front defense so when McNeil gets back, because who knows when he's going to be back. So and that's why the competition and when the pads get put on is going to be crazy, especially the D line wise and the offensive line guys wise, because everybody's going to be proving themselves that, hey, I can play 3 snaps. Hey, I can play 23 snaps. Hey, I can play the whole game. So it's going to be fun to watch. But again, we have enough bodies that, and again, Pat O'Connor, who stepped in and did stuff for us last year, that we know what he's able to do. And maybe we can throw something else on his plate. Because he knows from from last year. And let's go back to Reader. Did you see him beat all those guys in that race? That dude can move.
I did see that video. Yeah, he was flying.
Well, I was like, okay, maybe he can play rush end for us. Who knows?
Well, and here's another name that came up when Campbell was talking. He talked about undrafted free agent Keith Cooper. He mentioned Cooper's name. Mm-hmm. And that's not a guy I'm very familiar with. Either of you guys know anything about him?
He was an undrafted free agent that they brought in, I think, fairly late. I think he was a guy who made the team out of the rookie camp. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like an actual undrafted free agent. He just got invited to the rookie camp, made it out of the rookie camp, and impressed them there. And I think was the only guy that they kept out of the invitees from rookie camp. But he has a little bit of pedigree. I mean, he played well in college and was productive in college. Just one of those guys who slipped through the draft.
Nice. And again, I know maybe I don't think we wear rose-colored glasses, but I think we all tend to be optimists. And I'm gonna say that time thing that you guys have both brought up. I think that's what's big here, right? We have all the training camp. Some of these guys could take big jumps in training camp because they're going to get a lot more reps. And the coaches, as we've talked about, always look to try and put every player in a position to succeed. This isn't like 3 days before a game and you need to get someone to crash course. You got weeks. And so I'm going to come back to that at the end of the show, but I think there's some good There's some good optimism there. If I flip it to the biggest concern, though, this is what Dan Campbell said. His eyes are on the offensive line. Surprise, surprise, right? He said we have 2 or 3 more spots there for guys to step up and help. And then they have to mesh, and then they have to get those 5 guys to where they want them to start working together. He talked about the first 10 days are going to be really good for evaluating the interior offensive line and see what the Hall of Fame game looks like. So to me, it sounds like what they want to have is a plan in place going into that Hall of Fame game and then see what adjustments they need to make after that. Now, we know that right now they're putting Graham Glasgow is at guard and at right guard. Tate Ratledge is at center, and Mahogany's at left guard. My perspective, Coach, is that the Lions want Ratledge to win the center job because that would make them the strongest. But if they can't win the center job, they know they can put Graham in there. And with Ratledge playing so much guard in his life, he can easily more easily switch back over. So I think that's why they're starting it this way. And he brought up that Tate Ratledge, though he's never played center in a game, he took lots of reps in practice when in college at Georgia when he was playing center. So he's got some experience with it. Does that kind of approach make sense to you?
Oh, for sure. And I think, well, who's the center we have also in camp? We brought in the guy that's anyways. So
Michael Neese or Kingsley Aguakin?
No. Yeah,
Kingsley
Neese,
Aguakin.
What was the other one, James?
Kingsley Aguakin.
Yes, him. And then we also brought somebody in too that had 5 years of experience.
Okay.
Anyways, but let's go back to the question. Yeah. Here's the thing I look at. Glasgow. He is so happy to be back in that guard position. You read his enthusiasm, you hear his enthusiasm when he's talking, and I think that is going to be the biggest one. I think my gut feeling is he's going to stay there. Mahogany's going to stay at that left guard position, and they are going to make a center. They are going to make a center and create a center out of what's in camp. That's just my gut feeling because again, go back from the coaching standpoint. Do we want to screw up 2 positions to make one better? And it can be with Glasgow there, him happy, him excited. Hey, he'll be the backup, whatever. I just reading his things, and we had talked about this, in numerous times about he was the ultimate team player. I will go to the left side because there's a guy coming in to play the right side. That's the only position he's ever played for 12 years. I can play them all. I'm just happy Glasgow's here, and I think it's going to be a benefit. And I think they're going to create, they're going to build, they're going to develop, and they're going to make somebody that center that we need not to replace. That will never be done, but to be sufficient enough to keep our offense to go where it goes, and that's to the top.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And the player you're talking about, I think, was Tristan Colon. We brought him in
exactly.
where he could play center or guard.
Yes.
And so James, I mean, I love this plan of attack, right? You get a preseason game to test out what you put into action for 10 days. They said Ratledge has already looked better than he did at OTAs. And so I think this is the ideal situation that he takes that job, and then that's the starting 5.
Yeah, and you've also got a whole preseason for a whole host of other guys that they have that are going to be fighting for. They think, oh, maybe there's another job open at least for a month or so until Frazier comes back, where I can get an NFL paycheck. So you're going to have guys like Neese and Sorsdahl and Awashika, Muti, Tristan Colon, like we mentioned, Jamarco Jones. All of those guys are going to be smelling that. Oh, there's maybe a few more paychecks up for grabs here, and have been sort of a fringy NFL player. Those are big for me. So you're going to see some pretty good competition, I think, in training camp for that spot. Even at least temporarily, and those preseason games, you're going to see some guys, I think, hitting pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, this is a year where there are a number of potential spots available, and I say that with due to the injury situation and the starting lineup on the offensive line. So it's going to be not just the starting positions, but who are going to be those top backups because they're only going to keep so many offensive linemen. Another guy who might be making some improvements here is Giovanni Manu. Coach Campbell said he takes 2 steps forward and then 1 back at times. So he looks good and then he kind of slides back. But he's had a year now. The Lions have been working on training his body and his form, coach, and he thinks that's kind of been the biggest improvement amongst other things, and says as long as he keeps pushing, he'll be fine. Is there a chance that he pushes for the number 3 tackle position?
I mean, it'll depend on what these 4 preseason games look like, And again, the nice thing is I like hearing 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I think last year it was 1 step forward and 2 steps back. And Decker talked about just that. It's going to be his confidence level right now. It's his ability as an athletic left tackle is unbelievable, and his confidence in having the ability to, withstand the pounding in the NFL. So I think body wise, length wise, and stuff like that, he's got a great shot at doing that. But again, long as he improves preseason game 1. Practice preseason game 2, practice preseason game 3, and so on. I think his upward trend is very positive.
Awesome. And yeah, and coach said it's only been 2 days, but he looks better than he did in the spring. James, we've talked Kobe Sorsdale a little bit. We think, this is going to be one of those guys when we talk to the end of this show of who's going to have an important camp for him to stick, I guess, if you will, on the active roster. But is it Sorsdal? Is it, who's it going to be on the tackle position? Preseason will be good for all these guys. Any thoughts on the number 3 tackle? I mean, we know Dan Skipper's there, but you're also hoping that maybe there's a different guy who fills in as a starter and Skipper's that 6th offensive lineman.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a good floor right now as your 3rd tackle with Skipper. You know exactly what you've got, so that's nice to have. And then it just becomes, is somebody better than that? Does Jamarco Jones take a step? That he hasn't shown before, or does Sorsdal improve? Does Manu take maybe 2 steps forward and not take a step back at some point? I mean, you guys know I always like to kind of think weird out of the box, like, okay, what could they do with these pieces and do this? But I mean, imagine if you just had like an unbalanced line and put Skipper and Manu as extra linemen, kind of tight ends, and swung them around.
I don't think linebackers would like that too much.
Leading the run play. Yeah. Then think if you did it throw Sewell in there too, and you got all 3 of those guys.
13P, boys. I love it.
Maybe you put DJ Reader up there too. Just one more big body.
Our smash mouth football.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk philosophy a little bit. Talk John Morton there. The running game is still going to be a focus. Offensive line is going to be a competition. The coordinators, Coach Campbell said it hurts to lose the 2 guys that have been here before from the beginning. It does take time to build chemistry. That's the other thing, right? I mean, we saw that in the quarterback thing when, Jared Goff's calling for a play and, Ben Johnson can't hear him, but he calls the play that Jared Goff wants. You get on that same page. This is also going to affect, the way the coordinators and the head coach communicate. And Campbell said, you know what, though, that they're going to build that chemistry, and that's what practice is all about. Coach, they also said they're talking about, changing the tempo a little bit to test the other side of the ball. You've gone through it where you've had different coordinators in different years. How does that relationship build, and how important is that? And how does that, share some things that maybe the average person might not understand about that teamwork?
Well, there's always a question when a new coordinator comes in from the players, they're like, is he going to be like the last guy? I had such a great relationship with my last OC or my last DC and stuff like that. The nice thing about the DC position is he was already on staff. The nice thing about the OC position is he was already on staff a few years back. And so they all know each other. And it's, again, players win games, coordinators just make the calls, and I think that's the biggest thing everybody has to understand. And again, Morton and Shepard are both going to have something that the guys are going to go, thank God we've been doing this thing for 3 years. Now we get to switch it up a little bit. So there's going to be a whole lot of positives, and it's again, everybody has the same common goal. And I think that's the biggest thing that's going to help with them. So I'm not fearful of it all. Yeah, there's going to be some hiccups. Of course, there is going to be. Oh my, but again, they're going to work. We have 4 preseason games again to help on that. I want to touch base on one thing real quick, just because I was reading a thing about not a coordinator, but about Coach Townsend, the new DB coach. And this is the thing that I know that we're in great shape with. Townsend and Maddox. Maddox had made a mistake, and Townsend corrected it. And on the next play or series, Maddox made the adjustment, and Townsend immediately pointed out, "Thank you." That you listen, thank you, whatever. I don't know exactly how it came out, but my point is a coaching staff that makes corrections, players that make the corrections on the next play and don't make 2 mistakes, and then a coach that actually pointed it out. That is a sign of a great coaching staff. That comes from the head man all the way down through the coordinators, all down through the position coaches. Looking forward to watching them to shut up all the critics when we become successful on both sides of the ball again.
Fair enough. And yeah, I love that anecdote right there because that positive reinforcement and pointing out when someone does something right is a good way to help somebody actually grow and get better. James, anything on the coordinators or what Campbell said about building the chemistry or just changing the tempo to just kind of test the other team a little bit, the other side of the ball?
Yeah, I think something I think I saw that Morton said was something like, that he's like, I don't have to change a whole lot. He's like, I inherited a Ferrari. All it needs is a tune-up. Or something like that. So he's like, we
Right.
don't have to change a whole lot, and Jared Goff knows him from when his first time when he was with the Lions. He was here when Goff was here. He was here when, Sewell, Decker, some of those guys that had been around for 3-4 years. Morton overlapped with them, so they know him already. So there is already a level of familiarity, more so than if they just brought somebody completely, out from outside the organization in. So I don't think there's going to be too much of a hiccup there.
No, and I think this kind of falls into the category we've talked about. Like there were so many stats being broken last year and so many records, being broken with all these new accomplishments. And sometimes it almost feels like you got lost in that. And that almost it didn't become a distraction, but Coach would tell you it was a distraction because I know the way Coach is thinking. He just wants 1-0 every week, and that's all that matters. Nothing else matters. But I think you might see some changes in some of that, and I think you're going to see. You've had a couple different seasons where a couple things have gone a different way, but they were different from each other, and I think it's all going to build on each other. And so, yeah, so that's what I got. So I think the coordinators, I think it's going to be a good thing, and we'll see what we see once we actually have a game. I think that'll be the big thing. And kind of, obviously, they're not going to show everything as preseason, but I think that's going to evolve as we go on.
Yeah. I mean, what was our one criticism that we kind of consistently had on Ben Johnson? That they would run the ball in the first half and do it well and then stop running the ball in the second half.
Yeah.
Morton has to see that.
And if not, James, you probably already messaged him a couple times about it, right? All right. Guys, let's talk about Alex Anzalone. He did report to camp. He has a hamstring, though. He did not practice the first couple of days. So somebody asked Campbell if he was holding in, and Campbell's like, I sure hope not, or something like that, or he better not be, or something like that. I don't know. If you want the exact quote, find him, but along that line. A little bit more information came to light today when he spoke with reporters, said he thinks he is underpaid. He came out and actually said that. They asked him when he came to that realization, and he didn't have a specific date or whatever, but just came to that. They asked him how things are going with practice, like if he'll be out there and stuff. And he basically said he's taking things one day at a time as far as that comes. And I mean, again, when you're in certain situations, guys, that's all you can do is look for the next day. You can't look too far ahead. They also asked him, has the team been receptive to what's going on? And Anzalone said, you have to ask Dan and Brad. And he also finished by saying, he wants to retire a Detroit Lion. Yes, A, I'm sure he does. B, that's what anybody in a contract negotiation is going to say. But C part A, I really believe he does want to do that. Coach, this is this is the first time the Lions haven't dealt with this since, correct me if I'm wrong here, but since Brad and Dan have been there, that they've had a player wanting a pay raise and not getting it early. So therefore there might be a situation. And we know the salary cap is weird next year, but I want you to speak to the dynamic in the training camp right now and what this looks like. I'm sure, Dan doesn't want to talk about it. Alex doesn't want to talk about it, which is the right approach. But how does this affect things in the locker room and stuff like that?
Well, they know it's a job. They know it's a profession. They own it. They know they have to earn a paycheck. I think Alex is using it very professionally. I think by saying maybe you should talk to Dan and Brad about it. He's not using social media. He's had a few tweets here and there, but he's not using social media to get everybody fired up about it. I think I don't think it's a distraction to the locker room. I don't think it's a distraction to the team. Just by the way it's being handled. He had the hamstring problem. If he had not shown up or didn't even show up for camp, or he tore up his evaluation day. He tore it up, so he's working hard and give him that reason. So the players talk. There's no doubt about it. They're talking about it, and the players are backing him. And I'm sure Brad and Dan have had some great conversations with him. And it's gonna stay there until they can get something figured out. So as of right now, I'm not concerned with it. Hopefully it doesn't get worse than it is, and hopefully he gets a payday in the near future and gets back on the field and becomes the green dot that he is.
Yeah, and again, we're early in training camp, so you still got a lot of time. James, earlier this summer, I was on another podcast, and they said, "What about the idea of giving Anzalone a small pay bump for this year and adding another year onto his contract?" I said, "That sounds great." The problem with that, though, is salary cap is not in good position right now next year. So what do you feasibly see as a potential solution for this? And we know we've got some younger guys. We've got Campbell there coming up. Is this a spot where the Lions want to do an extension, or would it be better to do a 2-year extension so therefore you could put more money into that second year and not so much next year? Or what are some of your insights on what the Lions are dealing with from the financial side of it?
Yeah, they can totally do that, because they've got that bottleneck in the cap next year, and then they're in better shape the year after that. So they could do it where they give them a 2-year extension, where year one is not a massive pay bump or anything, but year two is. The other thing I could see them doing before the end of training camp is just guaranteeing more of his current contract. Right now, he's got no guaranteed money.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things he's unhappy about. He still counts against the cap and everything. It won't change their cap number if they just said, okay, we'll just fully guarantee your contract for this year, or guarantee a big chunk of it. Give him something, and then we'll work with you after the season is done. They could sign him to an extension too after they maybe restructure Jared Goff to make more room for next year. But that's going to be another stumbling block in the middle where you got to get that done. I mean, Goff's contract seems to be put together in a way where it's going to be pretty feasible to restructure that and move more money down the road, so they can do those kind of things. But that's just another thing that would have to be done before they could maybe get to Anzalone.
Yeah, and so it'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. I don't know what route they'll go on this, because there's a lot of variables at play here. I know Campbell wants him in, and I'm sure I wouldn't be shocked, Coach, if Campbell's talking to Brad saying, "Hey, can we get this thing done already?" Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because right now he's got a $6 million base salary, but $0 of that is guaranteed. So I think the short term thing would just be, say, we're going to guarantee at least 3 million of this, or something, and then you work on an extension after that.
And the point of guaranteeing that money, James, is in case he gets hurt in training camp or in week 1 or something like that.
Yeah. Yep. If he got hurt, the Lions could just walk away from that $6 million. I mean, and he wouldn't get paid it necessarily.
And that's
The
before week 1. If he got hurt in the season, it's a different thing, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, if it's during training camp or exhibition games or anything like that, the Lions could. I don't think that they would. I think that
Right.
they would stick by their guns, but I mean, the team can always opt to just pay the contract, even if it's not guaranteed. And given that the Lions have been a team that's been really good about taking care of their players, I mean, we've seen how long they've stood by Levi, even though he's gotten hurt several times with several different things, how they've re-signed Davenport, all these guys, like they're willing to stick by guys that they have their belief in. So I think that they would probably do that too. So there's probably a lot of talks behind the scenes between him and his agent. Holmes, I don't think does the actual contract negotiations. There's somebody else in the thing that does that. But there's a lot of stuff going on right now to get some of that stuff done, or just to say, here's what our plan is. We'll take care of you. Go make tackles on the football field.
Yeah, and you know what? Again, things are always much more productive when you just keep it in house and you get it done that way. When you go outside and you're getting the public media part of it to try and negotiate a contract in the public is just not a good idea for anybody, really. I mean,
Yeah.
again, it has to happen because that's the way some organizations handle it. But the Lions, I feel like, have made so much more progress, and we've seen it in the last 2 years firsthand with a lot of these extensions going on. So,
Yeah.
um,
And you've seen, and so this is like nothing like, say, like a Trey Hendrickson thing,
right,
where it's
totally.
looking more and more likely that he's maybe not going to play this season. And he's having to market himself through social media. Whereas you've seen Alex Anzalone, he has just pretty much just said, I'm not happy with my contract. And that's
But I'm
about it.
here. Yeah.
He hasn't made a big stink out of it or anything. And when with Hendrickson, I'm totally on his side too. I mean, the Bengals are one of the cheapest teams in the NFL. So uh, he should be paid like what guys like Aiden Hutchinson and Micah Parsons are getting and stuff like that. I mean, he is one of the top defensive ends in the league. Anzalone should probably have hit this year be guaranteed. But those things will work themselves out. I don't have any worries about it. I mean, Anzalone wants to be here. The team wants him to be here. It'll get done.
All right. Well, before I forget, because if I forget about David Montgomery, coach, I'm going to be in trouble. Um, he was interviewed, and coach, why don't you get us started on this one? David Montgomery had some, I don't want to say choice words, but very select words, and let people know how he's feeling and what attitude he might be bringing to the team this year.
Oh my God. When he says that he is not, he is, people have forgotten that he is part of this thing and that he is more prepared and more excited about the season. The opponent linebackers and D line and stuff better fear because the angry run awards may be every week for Monty to let everybody know that he is still one of the top 10, I think one of the top 10 backs in the NFL.
Well, he talked about that mindset attitude. He goes, it's another year. He goes, it's time to close out some of these debts. I love that perspective from him. Um, and, talked about Montgomery and said it's a reckoning and they're tired of getting close. Campbell did say, because the media asked, he said, Dave Montgomery said it feels like he's been forgotten, and Campbell said, he's not a forgotten man here. He goes, he and Gibbs are special. He goes, it's a special thing. They're one of the best 1-2 punches in football. It's a rarity to have these things, and we will use them together. That was a nice little thing there. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to overshine 98% of the running backs in the NFL. Okay, that's just the way that is. But David Montgomery would probably overshine 80% of the running backs in the NFL, and you've got them both on the same team, and they have overlapping skill sets that we've talked about in the past, but yet still some individual things that they do differently from each other. James, it was just 2 years ago that David Montgomery went 75 yards for a touchdown. That was a fun one against the Chargers. I think it was 2 years ago. But yeah, he's not forgotten. I think anybody that knows this team doesn't forget him, but maybe the casual fan overlooks him, and if they did, that's a mistake.
Yeah, I think the casual fan outside of Michigan, outside the Lions fandom, kind of does that. And I think people in the national media as well. Jahmyr Gibbs is the new shiny object. It's hard to ignore it and say that he doesn't have a gear. He has a gear that Montgomery doesn't quite have. I think even David Montgomery would
Sure,
say that.
I would agree that.
So there's that. But David Montgomery is just a guy who can pound the ball, pound the ball, pound the ball, make a defense submit. You know, and he's that short yardage runner. They're a perfect complement to each other. I think it is the best 1-2 combo in the NFL, of two running backs, just because how they do everything. And there's neither one of them really has a weakness either. They're both good at picking up pass blocking, doing all those little things that I think a lot of fans don't take into consideration. I mean, pass block pickup is huge in the NFL if you want to keep your quarterback standing. So I think nationally, yes, Montgomery's probably a little bit overlooked. Inside the Lions building, no.
Definitely not. No,
Everybody on that team loves that dude.
Yep, he's exactly helps them do what they want to do, which is run and pound the ball. Hendon Hooker, quarterback 3, started out as quarterback 3. They're probably make him work his way up to quarterback 2. Had some things to work on at home. They said they're looking to see him take the next step this year, and that's going to be important. James, you've kind of heard that looks like it's working.
Yeah, everything I've heard is that he's looked really good. Like he's taken some steps forward this season. Seems to be his footwork is good. He's making crisp, decisive decisions. In the parts of practice where the reporters were able to witness things, they said that he looks like a different quarterback than last year, which is a very good thing that the Lions have him. They have a veteran in Allen behind there too, so the quarterback position is looking pretty good.
All right. Defensively, linebacker Zach Cunningham is a good opportunity to find a place there, according to Campbell, and he's excited to have Hutch back and seeing that Hutch has his confidence back, Coach. Some good things to watch on the defensive side, especially. I mean, Hutch, you're gonna have to go to Lions training camp because I don't think you're gonna see him in the preseason, but those joint practices should be pretty special.
Yeah, oh, for sure with Hutch. And the big thing is day by day for him. He's always that injury is going to keep coming back, but each day his confidence level is going to build up, and I can't wait to see him on that first game of the year.
All right, guys. Final big question here: is the sky falling due to all these injuries? A lot of people on social media think so. They're like, it's falling. Coach, let's start with you. What's your reaction to all the injuries, summing up everything we've kind of talked about and where things are?
If we had 5 injuries last year, nobody would even notice these injuries this year. But because of the number we had, it's not falling. Again, we'll see when the pads get on. We'll see how long we go. Let's wait till the end of the preseason and figure that out.
All right, James, how about you?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. There's always every team has these similar things. Where you get a couple of guys early in the season get hurt, and suddenly everybody's like just freaking out. The Lions have planned ahead. They've built depth. When Ragnow retired, everybody was surprised, but then they looked at the roster and were like, you know what? They prepared for this. They knew this was a possibility, and they were prepared for it. And they've done this at almost every other position as well, just building up depth, getting guys in camp that are veterans, like Cunningham. You mentioned it, is at linebacker. Malcolm Rodriguez can't play, so they got a replacement in Cunningham and Stewart that can play and do pretty much similar things to what he did. So they've got a plan. I will add one thing that they added a guy for the all name team this week in their little minor transactions, which is DiCaprio Boodle.
Ah,
A corner out of Nebraska. I want him to succeed just because of the name, but that's me. I mean, one of those guys that can be a sucker for somebody with an awesome name.
yeah, James. That'll be a good name to keep an eye on as far as sky falling, injuries. Every team has injuries. Every team goes through it. You can't have a Pro Bowler at every position. This isn't like a video game Madden where you can build the roster that's basically indestructible. We've seen NFL teams try and do that. I think one team called themselves the Dream Team, and that didn't work out so well when they brought in all those players. You're going to have role players stepping up and just helping succeed. And as we've talked about, it's early enough that there's a lot of time to build them up, to everyone progress, and you still have a very good team on the field. So it's a work in progress. We'll see what happens. Nothing's guaranteed. There's no guarantee they're going to, be amazing or that they're going to be bad. It's going to take a week at a time to get there. All right, James. Well, I think we lost Coach. I think the laptop battery went out on him, so he's probably enjoying the great outdoors at this point. Did you have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Oh, I'm looking forward to this Hall of Fame game, to the rest of training camp, to no injuries, and, and to these injuries that they have turning out as well as they can.
All right. Well, folks, reminder, padded practices start on Friday. Open practices to fans this coming weekend. And then, of course, you got the Hall of Fame game next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please tell your friends and family about the show. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, all major streaming platforms. Please like and subscribe. We'd love your comments and reviews. Check out more episodes at notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.